can use the mic if they want to. Thank you. Good to have you here. Happy to see you. Hare Krishna. Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodananda Rajajana Ranjana Yashodananda.
What is the verse we're going to be reading?
Oh, he didn't tell you? Okay, I'm sorry, 329.8. 329.8.
329.
Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Prabhupada Hari Bol Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivraj Kacharya Shtotar Shri Srimad Divine Grace Abhay Charanarvinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Shila Prabhupada Ki Nanda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya So I will be reading from third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. You can use this verse. I have got it in my computer. We'll be talking in the next in these 3 days, today, tomorrow, and day after, on devotional service in the 3 modes. This is 3.29.8. 3.29.8. Explanation of devotional service by Lord Kapila. Okay. 3.29.8. So, till you look. If you don't locate it, we have a book over here. So, till you find it, let's do the word-to-word translation. Abhisandhaya, having in view. Yaha, he who. Himsam, violence. Dambham, pride. Matsaryam, envy. Eva, indeed. Va, or. Samrambhi, angry. Bhinnadruk, Bhinna, separate. Druk, whose vision. Bhavam, devotional service. Mai, to me. Kuryat, may do. Saha, he. Tamasaha, in the mode of ignorance. Abhisandhaya yo himsam, dambham matsaryam eva va, samrami bhinnadruk bhavam, mai kuryat satamasaha. Abhisandhaya yo himsam, dambham matsaryam eva va, sambrami bhinnadruk bhavam, mai kuryat satamasaha. Abhisandhaya yo himsam, dambham matsaryam eva va, sambrami bhinnadruk bhavam, mai kuryat satamasaha. Yes. Satamasaha. Vaishnavis. Abhisandhaya yo himsam, dambham matsaryam eva va, samrami bhinnadruk bhavam, satamasaha. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Devotional service executed by a person who is envious, proud, violent and angry, and who is a separatist, is considered to be the mode of darkness. Purport. It has already been stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 2nd chapter, that the highest, most glorious religion is the attainment of causeless, unmotivated devotional service. In pure devotional service, the only motive should be to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is not actually a motive, that is the pure condition of the living entity. In the conditioned stage, when one engages in devotional service, he should follow the instructions of the bona fide spiritual master in full surrender. The spiritual master is the manifested representation of the Supreme Lord, because he receives in presence the instructions of the Lord as they are by disciplic succession. To act under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master, with a motive to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is pure devotional service. But if one has a motive for personal sense gratification, his devotional service is manifested differently. Such a man may be violent, proud, envious, and angry, and his interests are separate from Lord's. One who approaches the Lord to render devotional service, but who is proud of his personality, envious of others, or vengeful, is in the mode of anger. He thinks that he is the best devotee. Devotional service executed in this way is not pure, it is mixed, and is of the lowest grade, tamasaha. The Vishwanath Chakra Thakur advises that a Vaishnava who is not of good character should be avoided. A Vaishnava is one who has taken the Supreme Personality of God as the ultimate goal of life. But if one is not pure and still has motives, then he is not a Vaishnava of the first order of good character. One may offer his respect to such a Vaishnava because he has accepted the Supreme Lord as the ultimate goal of life, but one should not keep company with a Vaishnava who is in the mode of ignorance. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshuronmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Pancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So today morning, we are discussing on the Srimad Bhagavatam 3rd canto the instructions of Lord Kapila to Devahuti, and he is speaking here on the glories of devotional service. And while explaining devotional service, he exhibits here a remarkable level of self-criticality. Self-criticality means we need to be able to honestly look at ourselves and admit our own deficiencies, our own faults. Religious people are often known to be self-righteous. That means, we are right and these people are bad like this, these people are bad like this, these people are bad like this. So the general tendency is to be self-righteous. I was in Texas a few months ago, and there I saw a poster, a notice on a person's car. So there they had written, "Oh God, please save me from your preachers. Oh God, please save me from your preachers." Preachers. Normally, God saves us through his preachers. But if the preachers are self-righteous, condescending, hell and brimstone evoking, then people just get put off by such people. So, actually, the devotees of the Lord are meant to connect people with the Lord. But sometimes devotees may alienate people from the Lord. There's one atheist who said that religion is a very good thing, but the bad thing that religion did was that it got mixed up with people. When religion gets mixed up with people, religion that is a good thing becomes bad. Now, it is not that religion becomes bad, but people bring their mentality to religion. And here I'd like to differentiate between, say, we could say the ultimate or ideological values that we have and the functional values that we have. So Srila Prabhupada here in his purport says that if somebody has accepted the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the goal of life, that is to be respected. Among many people who have many different goals in lives, if somebody has accepted that God is the ultimate purpose of my life, they are special. So that is, we could say, their ideological value. Their ideology is the philosophy, the worldview that they accepted in which God is supreme. However, just because we have a particular ideological value does not necessarily determine how we will function in the world. How we function here will be determined by our functional values. Functional values means that what is the way my nature is, what is the nature of my conditionings, what is the kind of person that I have. And to give a simple example, suppose I am lost and my car is broken, and finally somebody texts me a message which shows me the way back home. Now I have got the way back home. In that sense, I am well situated. But if my car is say damaged and it is emitting a lot of pollution, it is making a lot of unpleasant noise, it is creating a nuisance wherever it goes. Noise pollution, air pollution, even inside also, it jerks, it breaks down, I have to start it again, it veers out of control. Now just because I have got the right destination to go back home does not mean that my car has become all right. My journey is rightly directed, but that does not mean that everything about my journey is right. The kind of car that I have, that will determine how I will drive. If I have got the right address to go, that will determine where I am going to go. I am going to the right destination. But my car is still the way it is. And if the car is if my car is also noisy and polluting, and on top of that I don't even know the destination, that is even worse. So some people who are lost, not knowing the ultimate goal of life, and they are in the mode of ignorance, that is even worse. But just because we have got the path home does not mean that our car has become all right. So in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 18th chapter, Krishna compares the body to a car. Ishvara sarva bhutanam hriddeshe arjuna tishtati brahmayan sarva bhutani yantra rudhani mayaya. Yantra rudhani mayaya. That we are all situated on a yantra, on a material machine made up of material nature. And while being situated in this machine, we all function according to the way the machine is. Soul, which is in the snail's body, it has got the machine of a snail. That soul cannot run like a cheetah or cannot run like a deer. A soul which is in a bird's body cannot swim like a fish. So these are limitations which are created simply by the species that we are in. But beyond that, also, within a particular body, we are impelled to act in particular ways by the kind of body that we have. And when we start practicing bhakti, that is like we understand what is this body meant to be used for. But just because I understand the purpose for which the body is meant to be used does not necessarily mean that the nature of the body-mind machine is going to change. If I have in the past, in this life and in previous lives, lived in the mode of ignorance, then even in this life, even after becoming a devotee, the mode of ignorance will keep propelling me. And if it keeps propelling me, then I will be acting largely influenced by the mode of ignorance. And the kind of qualities that are described over here, abhisandhayayo himsam dambham matsaryameva va. So, sambrami. So one is violent, one is angry, one is envious, one is arrogant. If you see, these are in the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the qualities that are described of the demoniac nature. The divine and the demoniac is the chapter title of the 16th chapter. So, Dambho Darpo Abhimanascha Krodha Parushyameva Ajnanam cha bhijatasya partha sampadamasurim. So Dambha is showing off, Darpa is demanding praise, Abhimana is actually delighting in honor. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that each of these are different. Dambha means that even when I don't have good qualities, I pretend to have them, and I want to be respected for that. So it's a show. That's like some people, some very VIPs in India, there are some personalities in Bollywood, they come to a temple only on Janmashtami, or even then they don't come. But whenever they come, for them, they come into a temple is like a photo op. They want to show on their Facebook, oh, I went to this temple, just see how nice person I am. So they are coming to the temple not to take darshan, but to give darshan. Tell the whole world I went to a temple. So they are not actually having any religious virtue, but they want to make a show of it. So Dambha means when I don't have a quality, still I want to get credit by pretending as if I have the quality. Abhimana means I have the quality, but my primary purpose in having that quality is how much praise do I get for it. So not having it and pretending it, and having it but exhibiting it. These two are both Krishna considers demoniac. And Krodha, here Sambrami, angry. And Parushya. Parushya is harshness. Harshness can be in speech, harshness can be in action, which here relates with himsa, violence. So basically, these are qualities of those who are ungodly, of those who are demoniac. And here Krishna is saying that devotional service can also be performed like this. It's amazing that doesn't devotional service transform everyone? Yes, devotional service does transform, but the transformation takes time. And depending on what conditioning who is in, the transformation may take that much amount of time. So if somebody is very deeply conditioned and somebody is not practicing bhakti very intensely, then the mode of ignorance may still prevail even in their practice of bhakti. What will happen is that if we consider a hospital, in a hospital, somebody may go to the hospital to get cured. But if there somebody is already infected and those people are not properly quarantined, then these people may give infection to others. So now just because somebody is sick with an infectious disease does not mean that they shouldn't be allowed to be in the hospital. Long ago, I was admitted to a hospital for a flu and I ended up getting a TB in the hospital. So I got tuberculosis after going to the hospital. And then when I got to the hospital, because tuberculosis is spread through the mouth, it was a very advanced stage. So for all that time, whenever I would meet people or whenever I would go out anywhere, I would wear a mask constantly. So one devotee came and told me, you have become a Jain sadhu now. Jains wear masks on their face. So, but the point is that a person who is sick with an infectious disease also has a right to be in the hospital. But it is not right for the hospital to allow such a person to mix with everyone. And it is not right for everyone in the hospital to mix with that person. So similarly, Srila Prabhupada says over here, if a Vaishnava is affected by the mode of ignorance, we respect that this person is practicing bhakti, is accepted the Supreme Lord as the goal of life. But still, their association may not be uplifting. So we can respect them from a distance. Now, of course, we don't want to become judgmental here. Oh, you are in the mode of ignorance. See, the nature of the mind is that whatever it wants to believe, it will adopt, utilize whatever it hears to justify its belief. So if I don't like some devotee, I'll just say, you are in the mode of ignorance. Your bhakti is in the mode of ignorance. No, generally, any kind of categorization that we do, say in the mode of goodness, passion, ignorance, that categorization is not to put people into boxes. It is not to reduce people to certain convenient conceptual categories. Because people are multifaceted beings. Somebody may be in the mode of ignorance in one way, but they may be in the mode of goodness in some other way. Somebody may be very unclean and disorderly. We say you're in mode of ignorance. But they may be brilliant at one particular thing and they do it very well. So we appreciate them for what they are good at, but we keep a distance from them with respect to other things. So rather than putting people in boxes and labeling, oh, you are in the mode of ignorance, your bhakti is in ignorance, your bhakti is in passion. Rather than doing like that, we use these analytical schema for understanding the boxes that we ourselves are already in. This is not so much to judge others as to introspect ourselves. So for us, when we strive to practice bhakti, at that time, our past conditioning does come upon us. And when it comes upon us, it influences us in ways which can be dangerous or even disastrous. So samrami, for example, it is angry. In our philosophy, we have two different ways of approaching anger. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that Trividham narakasya idam dwaram nashanam atmanaha kamah krodhas tatha lobhas tasmade tatrayam tyajet. He said there are three gates to hell. Is lust, anger and greed. So if we act lustily, angrily or greedily, we are directed towards a hellish destination. So we are meant to give up anger. If you want to, tasmadetat trayam tijit. Krishna says 16.21. But then we are also told that in devotional service we can use everything. Even anger can be used in devotional service. So for example, Hanuman is said to have used anger in devotional service when he burnt Lanka. So devotee's anger is said to be transcendental. It is for Krishna's service. Now when we get angry, is our anger for Krishna's service or is our anger simply because of the mode of ignorance? It is very difficult to know. Generally, when something comes from within, where is it coming from? I often speak on understanding the mind. So one common question comes up is that when some thought comes up within us, how do we know whether it is coming from the mind or it is coming from the intelligence? So this usual answer is that it's very difficult to know. Where something is coming from is almost impossible to know. What we can discern, however, is where it is taking us. Some idea comes up. Hey, come on, do this. We have some service to do and the mind says, okay, this Kartik, you should chant 64 rounds every day. Now, is this idea taking me towards Krishna? Yes. Then I can say this is coming from the intelligence. It is basically, we can look at what is favorable to our bhakti and accept that, and what is unfavorable to our bhakti and avoid that. So if I find that I have some responsible service for Krishna and I want to chant 64 rounds as a way to avoid that service, then actually that 64 rounds will be taken away from Krishna. So I look at the whole picture and see in the whole picture, where is this thought taking me? So anukulyasya sankalpa, pratikulyasya varjanam. Accept that which is favorable, avoid that which is unfavorable. So when some thought comes up from within, if it is favorable, we accept it. If it is unfavorable, if it's favorable, if it takes us closer to Krishna, then we can say, okay, this is coming from the intelligence, this is coming from the Paramatma. Rather than focusing on where it is coming on, we focus on where it is taking us. So similarly with respect to anger. Anger can be used in devotional service. But we have to check, what is my anger going to do? If I become angry, if I yell at someone, if I blast out at someone, is that going to make things better or is that going to make things worse? And if it is going to make things worse, then better that I don't become angry. Better that I control myself and express myself in a more cultured, more sensitive, more effective way. So more often than not, because the lower modes are still there within us, our anger is frequently because of the mode of ignorance influencing us. Generally, if we consider these three modes of material nature, in the mode of goodness, we understand what is in my control and what is beyond my control. In the mode of passion, we overestimate our capacity to control. This person like this, everything should happen like this. And I have told you to do this, you must do this. We think that we are the controllers. Now, of course, if we are given a responsible service, then we do have to become a controller in the service of the Supreme Controller and get the service done. But still, while doing that, in the mode of passion, we overestimate our capacity to control others. We think that this person, they should do the way I am telling them to do. And if they are not doing it, then because I have been appointed to do this service, I have a right to chastise them. And then I burst out at them. So sometimes what happens, the mode of passion degenerates to the mode of ignorance very fast. In the mode of passion, we want to control things, and if something can't be controlled, then in the mode of ignorance, we want to destroy that thing. So like sometimes when people are watching a sports match, say their favorite team is playing. In India, people are mad for cricket. Every country, something people are mad for. America, it may be baseball or soccer or whatever. So when their favorite team is playing and they're watching the TV, they may be glued to the TV. They don't want to let their attention go anywhere else. And if their favorite team loses, they will just take a bar and slam the TV and break the TV. Now, what is breaking the TV going to achieve? But the idea is, this TV was meant to give me enjoyment. This TV was meant to increase my idea that I am the controller and the enjoyer. And if the TV is not doing that, I will destroy it. I'll destroy it. So, mode of passion, where I want to be the controller. If I can't be the controller, then I'll be the destroyer. I'll destroy you. Sometimes when young people have some romantic ideas, a boy is infatuated with a girl, and if the girl says no, then the boy can become even violent. I met one devotee who is working with acid attack victims. Sometimes what happens, some boys, if they want to be with a girl and the girl refuses, and their idea becomes, if you won't be with me, you won't be with anyone else. And they take some acid and just throw it on the girl's face. And the girl gets terribly disfigured by that. Her life gets ruined. So here what is happening? Passion is degenerating into ignorance. Passion means I want to be the enjoyer. If I can't be the enjoyer, then I'll be the destroyer and I will destroy you. So similarly, sometimes what happens in our devotional service, we want some other devotee to do something the way we want them to do. And if they don't act in that way, then we wanted to be the controllers and then we become the destroyers. Destroyer means what? We destroy that devotee's reputation. This devotee did this. We start broadcasting all over the world. Nowadays with internet available, one can just put something on Facebook and it can become viral. So through social media, we can just destroy people's lives. So in this case, the violence that we are committing is not physical. Most devotees, we live in a cultured society where also we know that there is a rule of law. Physical violence will be very strictly punished. But we may do other verbal violence. Now, yes, that devotee did not do what I wanted them to do, and that is a fault in them. But we have to see things in perspective. That yes, okay, this fault is there, but that does not mean the whole devotee is faulty. They may have not done this, and yes, some action may have to be taken for them. But there is no need to destroy that whole devotee's life or their reputation or their service. But the nature of the conditioned mind is like that. No, you did not do this, you did this mistake. The whole world has to be told that you did this mistake. And sometimes, some devotees start thinking that they are self-appointed protectors of the tradition. They say, this devotee is doing this wrong, and by broadcasting to the whole world that this devotee is doing this wrong, I am actually protecting the tradition. Well, our responsibility is to protect our devotion first. If we are criticizing devotees, that is a Vaishnava aparadha. And that can have very serious consequences for our own devotional life. So therefore, himsa, when we do violence, then that is simply the mode of ignorance within us acting out. We may say that I am doing it with a devotional intention, but the devotional intention will not lead to any congenial action. It will lead to a very detrimental or dangerous action. So for us, the devotional service in the mode of ignorance can very well mean that we end up fighting amongst each other. Each person trying to prove, I am right, I am right, I am right. You are wrong. We are all individual living beings, and our individuality is irreducible. Irreducible means that I am eternally an individual and you are eternally an individual, and so is everyone else. So all of us will have our opinions, all of us will have our understandings, all of us will have our own inspirations about how to do things. So sometimes the two people's ideas of doing things may just not agree. So we may have to disagree, but we don't have to be disagreeable. We may have to disagree, but we don't have to be disagreeable. Disagreement is simply a fact of life. We all are different, so naturally disagreements will be there. But being disagreeable, being unpleasant, irritable, nasty towards each other, that is actually a characteristic of the mode of ignorance. And unfortunately, sometimes our devotion may make us self-righteous. I am doing this because you are so bad and because you are hurting others. Well, whether that person is hurting others or not, I am hurting myself and I am hurting others. So a lot of conflicts among devotees happens because we presume our motives to be transcendental while our actions tend to be in ignorance or passion. So while our actions are driven simply by the lower modes within us, just because we have become devotees doesn't mean that our devotion has become, everything about our devotion has become spiritual. Everything has become positive. So there are many secular thinkers who say that what we need for peace in the world is, for peace, what we need is a world without religion. Just imagine, there will be no religion, there will be no fighting, there would have been no crusades, no jihads, no this, no that. The world would be so peaceful. Now actually, it is not that religion is the cause of war. Last Sunday I was in Washington DC, where I spoke elaborately on this topic of does religion cause war, but on the Sunday feast class. But the point is that majority of the people in the world are in the mode of passion and ignorance. And even when they practice religion, it is their passion and ignorance that comes out. And that's why in the name of religion also violence can happen. But in the name of atheism also violence can happen. The communist rules, say in China and USSR, they killed millions of people, their own citizens, without any war being fought. The number of people killed by the communist governments in their own countries is more than the number of people killed in the First World War and Second World War combined together. So there is, if the lower modes are there, it will affect the way we function. And that's why we need to recognize, okay, I have accepted as an ideological value, I have accepted Krishna as my goal. But what are my functional values? How am I functioning? Just because I have got the best goal does not mean that my actions are the best, or even that my actions are good. So when we become introspective like this, then we can become real, and our bhakti can become transformational. Bhakti is meant to transform us, but the mind is so cunning that the mind can misappropriate the process of bhakti to continue our deformed condition. That means bhakti can free me from anger if I practice bhakti diligently. But the mind is so cunning that it makes me angry and makes me think that this is devotional anger. And thus, actually, the mind uses the bhakti to continue the deformed condition. So if we don't address our inner issues properly, we won't let the process of bhakti work properly in us. Although bhakti can transform anyone, we may not get transformed. We may still stay stuck where we are because our mind's ideas are blocking the current of bhakti from cleansing our heart. So when bhakti is in the mode of ignorance, it will also purify. Because if one is doing bhakti, it is going to purify. But because it is done in the mode of ignorance, it is going to create a lot of trouble for ourselves as well as others. Because just like if I said a vehicle is broken, it is noisy, it is polluting, it is jerky, then the person who is driving, they are going to face trouble. And the people who are driving nearby, people who are living nearby, they are also going to face trouble. So similarly, as long as we are in the mode of ignorance, we are going to hurt ourselves and we are going to hurt others, even while we are practicing bhakti. So we need to, now we may not have a lot of mode of ignorance within us, but some traces of ignorance are there in all of us. And those need to be addressed. So by recognizing that bhakti is transcendental, but I am not at all, I may not be transcendental right now, we can become more self-critical in terms of evaluating how I am practicing bhakti, and then take shelter of Krishna. How to change the situation, how to actually take shelter of Krishna while we are in the lower modes, that I'll discuss in tomorrow and day after tomorrow's class, when I speak about bhakti in the mode of passion and bhakti in the mode of goodness. So I'll summarize what I spoke today. I talked about bhakti in the three modes, which Kapil Dev is analyzing over here, and he exhibits a significant level of self-criticality. Whereas religions are said to be self-righteous, the Bhagavatam shows how even religious teachers can be self-critical. And practicing bhakti gives us the best ideological value. It's like a person who is lost in a broken car. They find the address by which they can go back home. But just because our ideological value has become right, doesn't mean our functional value has become right. The cars may still be polluting, noisy, jerky. So our body may still be conditioned by the mode of ignorance, and it may impel us to act in ignorant ways. So religious people, if they become self-righteous, then even the wrong actions they rationalize as right based on their religious ideologies. So people may do violence in the name of religion, when actually they are doing violence simply because they are impelled by the mode of ignorance. So generally, in the mode of passion, we want to be the controllers, and if passion gets frustrated, we want to become destroyers. So that can happen in the outside world, where people want to kill those who think that they are opposed to. Boys may want to disfigure girls, but that can happen in devotee circle also, where somebody who doesn't go along with our plans, we go on a campaign of character assassination, thinking that we are protecting the tradition from this deviant person. Actually, we are simply giving in to ignorance in the name of transcendence. So everybody has a right to practice bhakti, but everybody needs the right place to practice bhakti. If somebody is sick with an infectious disease, they also have a right to be in the hospital. But the hospital cannot allow them to mix with everyone and infect everyone else. So if somebody is infected by the mode of ignorance, then they will infect everyone else. So Prabhupada says that those who are infected, those who are in the mode of ignorance and are practicing bhakti, we have to respect them for their practice of bhakti, but keep a distance from them. So we should not become judgmental about others and put people into convenient boxes and label and condemn them. This sort of analysis is primarily so that we can understand which boxes we are in right now and protect ourselves. So anger is a gate to hell. It is a sign of ignorance, but it can also be in the service of Krishna in transcendence. So how do we know whether my anger is in ignorance or in transcendence? it's very difficult to know whether it is coming from our ego or mind or whether it's coming from the intelligence of the Paramatma. Better to see not where it is coming from, but where it is taking us. If the effect is going to be constructive, then express it. If it is going to be destructive, it's going to hurt, alienate people, then better calm down and express things in a more civilized way. So rather than thinking of ourselves as transcendental, as self-appointed protectors of the tradition, we should see that I am simply a practitioner, humble practitioner, and let me get my bhakti right. So when we become self-aware, then we can also detect the ignorant and the passionate tendencies within us and correct themselves. Otherwise, we'll still practice bhakti, we'll still be purified, but our bhakti practice will hurt us and hurt others. But if we curb the mode of lower modes within us by introspection and by purification, then our bhakti will become more and more joyful for ourselves and for others. So thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, Prabhu. You had a question also, Prabhu? Hare Krishna. You also had a question. Maybe we can start with you. You can speak, I'll repeat. You can just speak, I'll repeat it. I'll repeat it. No, I'll repeat it, yes. I'll repeat the question.
Now, thanks for the class, Caran Prabhu. I wonder if we can call bhakti a person that practices bhakti in the mode of ignorance and in the mode of passion, criticizing and looking at others. Can we call that bhakti still? Can we call that?
Okay, good question. If somebody is acting in the mode of ignorance, say criticizing, fault finding, can we call that bhakti at all? It's very difficult to become hyper analytical of things. Say if I'm giving a class, in that class maybe 70% of what I speak is glorification of Krishna. But 1 or 2 points I speak which might just be my own vested agenda, my anger, my resentment coming out. So now, if that happens, then is the class devotional service or not? Well, you can say that some part of, most of the class are devotional service, but some of it may not be. So rather than just saying that what you are doing is not bhakti, now we have to just help people to do bhakti better. Because our purpose is not to, as I said, label and condemn. We could say that somebody who is going on a say campaign of criticizing others, you're not performing bhakti. But they may have some good intention. Many times it is hurt people that hurt people. Now, if I have been hurt by someone, then I go out and hurting others. So then if I tell them you're not performing bhakti at all, that only makes them more insecure, more angry, and then things become worse. So okay, we appreciate they may have some devotional intention, but it's like the soul or the heart is here, the body and the mind are here, and the world is out here. So I may have a devotional intention, but the devotional intention is expressed through the body mind that I have. And if the body mind are largely influenced by ignorance, then the expression may come out as ignorant. So rather than saying that, what you're doing is not bhakti at all, you say, okay, what you're doing, the intention may be good, but the way you're doing it may not be so good. So we have to, rather than label, just communicate in a way that helps make the situation better. Because we don't know who is doing what with what intention. Somebody who acts very devotionally, we may have a very anti-devotional intention. And somebody who seems to be acting very anti-devotionally may have a devotional intention. But for us to function in a cultured way, we need to have a devotional intention and a devotional action. So there will be differences, but differences can stem from genuine concern also. But then they have to be expressed in a sattvic way, in a mode of goodness, in a cultured way. Does that answer your question? Thank you. Yes.
Prabhu. Very nice class. And I was thinking that suppose I am a devotee, I have put nice tilak, nice dress, Vaishnava dress, everything. But if I am not following the principle of Srila Prabhupada, that means Prabhupada said, Jare dekho tare ko Krishna padas. Whomever you see and wherever you see, and just tell about Krishna. And I am not following that principle, but I am giving so many other speculative things, so many prajalpa, what you can say, prajalpa. But on the Facebook, suppose, then suppose somebody criticizes me. Criticize means give suggestion. Some say, you Prabhu, you are so nice, you can do something. At least tell about something about Krishna or Bhagavad Gita and about Prabhupada, anything, Lord Chaitanya's teaching. So I am not following that. And so will you think that, how will you consider? It is a criticize or suggestion can be called as criticize, or it will be an offense?
Means you're talking about somebody else giving us that suggestion. Are they criticizing us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or is it an offense for him? Or means who is giving suggestion?
Okay. So, if somebody is speaking a lot of mundane things and is not speaking about Krishna, and then we offer them a suggestion, please speak about Krishna, but they don't accept it. So, is our offering a suggestion? Is it a criticism? Is it an offense? No, the word offense can sometimes get bandied out around very loosely in devotional circles. We may just use the word offense very loosely. Generally, offense refers to that which is done with a bad intention. That's primarily. When I see some devotee successful, influential, popular, and that makes me feel, I want to pull this devotee down. If that enviousness is there, then that is definitely an offense. But if our intention is good, then generally it is not a serious offense. But still, just because my intention is good doesn't mean that I shouldn't care for my actions. It's like, say, if we are all dancing in kirtans, and then, I'm angry with some devotee. So I pretend to be in ecstasy and I start going round and round and round. I go towards that devotee with my hands stretched. I give that devotee a slap. Now, I'm doing that intentionally. Now, that is definitely offensive. But suppose I go into ecstasy and I start dancing and singing and my hands are wide apart and I hit some devotee. Now, my intention was not to hit, but still I have hit. So that is also something I should apologize for. Now, in a technical sense, is it aparad? Well, we have to be better play safe, and I'm sorry for this. I didn't intend to do this. So our intention is what makes something definitely an aparad. If the intention is to pull down somebody else. But if the intention is not bad, still if the action turns out to be counterproductive or turns out to be hurting others, then it can be an offense. So if we are offering suggestion in a humble mood, wanting to help the other person, and if that person just becomes very aggressive, you just mind your own business, I know what I'm doing. I'm doing. If they become, then we can just say, I'm sorry if I offended you, and we move on with our life. We don't have to give suggestions where they are not welcome. Because ultimately, our time is limited, our energy is limited, and our emotions are limited. So generally, when we reciprocate with someone, it's like, say, some unfamiliar person comes at our door. Initially, nowadays, of course, we have security cameras, but initially we might look through a peephole, or we might open the door with a small chain, and chain over there, and see who is there. And does this person look safe? They have some necessary, important business over there, and we may open the door, let them in. So like that, our relationships are also similarly. We open the door of our heart a little bit, and we offer a small suggestion. And if they accept it, then we open our heart more, they open their hearts more, and the relationship develops. But if they start shouting at us, they start becoming aggressive or defensive, then okay, this person is not interested, we just move on then. So that way we can decide. Okay? Can we come back to you? Let me come back to you. Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you, Caitanya Charan Prabhu, for such a thoughtful presentation and thought-producing too. One thing that I was trying to understand, what I'm taking from what you presented was that in dealing with these very difficult circumstances sometimes that we face as devotees, that in dealing with not only our own tendencies for ignorance, passion and ignorance, but also in dealing with others' passion and ignorance, there is a difficulty or there's a conflict that, you can actually take, deal it in such a way that you want to, as you say, you have to be in quarantine. You have to be, the association have to be, you have to block that type of association in one sense. Yeah. And in the other hand, there's a conflict that the compassionate nature, we want to actually help. And we want to, we don't want, necessarily to ostracize people or devotees. We want to be able to see and appreciate others' good qualities, because as you say, they may be ignorant in this, but there's other things that are nice.
Good. Yes, that's
and so there is this conflict, how to hit that center. Okay. And you explain that we have to be consistently and constantly being introspective and being from our perspective. Okay, is my ignorance, where is this thing taking me? Yeah. Now, we have situations that that as a society, it seems that there's certain areas that are almost like, this line cannot be crossed. And sometimes it's crossed by devotees. And then how do you deal with that? For example, when you have to do with children, right? We have in the Catholic Church how much devastating has been child abuse for that. And also we see that in our institution. So there's a line that cannot be crossed, and has been crossed by devotees that have been respected until it is found out that that line is crossed. And then you have to sort of take a stand and almost like, and it creates also, not only, it creates emotions on the devotees that area is close to their hearts. Teachers, parents, children, like that. And it created anger and that sort of rejection. How do you deal with those type of things in a compassionate way that is more in line with what you're explaining, that sort of internal type of thing?
If somebody has some ignorant tendencies because of which they have crossed some lines which cannot be allowed to be crossed, and people have been hurt by that. So we want to be compassionate to that devotee, but at the same time we also have to protect the community. So how do we deal with such a situation? Yeah, it's a very difficult situation. Generally, if a devotee is given a leadership position, then that devotee definitely needs to have good character. Means at least some amount of goodness and some strong capacity to control the modes of passion and ignorance. They may come up, but one should be able to control them. So if some devotee has done something grievously wrong, then that doesn't mean that it have to be rejected from the practice of bhakti, but they cannot be given a leadership position. I know one temple where there was one person, he was a brilliant singer and he was a brilliant teacher of singing and music. But he was also a habitual drunkard. So his wife was a devotee, initiate devotee, but he was alcoholic. And he would come to the temple smelling alcohol. Now he was never allowed to sing kirtans for the deities. But he had the desire, he liked to sing Hare Krishna. So in other places in the temple, say in some rooms, he would train devotees how to play musical instruments. He would train devotees how to sing different tunes, different ragas, and he was good at his work, good at his. He was also a professional music teacher. So now his devotional service can be accepted, and it's valued also. Devotees appreciated him, but then he cannot be made as a representative of the community leading kirtans for the deities. If he wants to come alone to the temple and sing for the deities, they can do that. But when we are presenting ourselves as a community and doing arti for the Lord, doing a puja, doing a kirtan, that time he cannot be given. So that means the broad principle I draw from this is that anybody who wants to render devotional service, whatever be their past or even whatever be their present, we need to give them the facility to provide to perform devotional service. But it is just as they have a right to practice devotional service, others also have a right to practice devotional service. And if the way they practice devotional service is going to negatively influence others, then certain adjustments have to be made, and they also have to have the humility to accept those adjustments. I have this particular issue with me, and we don't have to publicly talk about that. Discreetly, it can be explained to them in a respectful, at the same time, firm way. So if they are ready to agree to that, then Krishna's movement is so inclusive that everybody can be included. But where it becomes a problem is if somebody who has done serious wrongs or who is doing something seriously wrong, their wrongs are completely overlooked and they are glorified as if they are great people. Then especially those who have been hurt by their bad actions will feel infuriated by that. So that line in real life is very difficult to balance, where that particular person, sometimes they themselves may have rendered a lot of service before, then they did something wrong, and then again they are trying to render service. So what to focus on? We want to focus on how they can stay connected with Krishna, how they can move towards Krishna. So I would say both have to have an understanding attitude. Somebody who has been hurt, they also need to understand that I don't have to go on an agenda demonizing this person. They've done something in the past, and let the past be history now. Let the past stay in the past now. I don't have to dredge up the history unless that person is given a position of power by which they may repeat it. If that is happening, then strong action has to be taken. So there are three ways. That person has to have the humility to accept whatever facility they are going to practice devotional service without demanding a leadership position. Those who have been victims, they have to know that this person did this to me, but now my life's mission doesn't have to be to get back at that person. My life's mission is to move towards Krishna, and let me focus on doing that which I can to move towards Krishna. And from the leader's perspective, they have to make sure that the right of one person to practice bhakti, whether it is the victimizer or the victim, should not infringe on the other person's right to practice bhakti. So both need to be, the victim can be given facility without giving a leadership position, the victimizer without giving a leadership position, and everybody needs to be facilitated in a way that they can grow towards Krishna. That's the broad principles. Practices, I think, will have to be worked out on an individual case-to-case basis. Thank you. Hare Krishna. You have them to comment on that? Okay. So should we stop here or we can go ahead? Okay. Okay. Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you a lot for your class and for your commentary on these last questions. It's somewhat related. You mentioned in your talk how anger can sometimes be used as a gift, and I mean it is a gift of God, but to use it appropriately.
Anger.
Anger, yeah. So, we obviously knowing we all have our own ignorance to some extent, and using that anger appropriately in some situations, like for example those extreme situations he mentioned, where there's like cases of abuse, like from leaders, and but how to reach out to other people or use that gift of anger in a positive way. I mean, I can remember in my life sometimes where someone said something to me at the time that seemed really insensitive, but since it was such a powerful emotion of anger in me that like kind of like that was, I didn't like it, I kept thinking about that, and then later on I was like, I think he might have been right. So, and we can also see how anger is Prabhupada a lot of times we'll see talk about some leaders of society and politicians with that harsh words, not in a negative way though, but in the that mode of truth, like he's just speaking truth and.
Yeah, I got your question. So
Yeah.
you're saying that some people may actually be using anger in a constructive way for Krishna's service, and even if somebody is a recipient of that anger, at that time they feel furious, but later they realize actually it was right what they were saying. So how do we see this? In the Mahabharata, morality or right and wrong actions, how to understand them, 3 broad criteria are given. One ultimate criteria is that we consult scripture. But actions can be understood as right or wrong based on intent, content, and consequence. Why am I doing something? What exactly am I doing? And what is the result of what I am doing? Based on all these 3 factors, we can decide whether a particular action is right or wrong. So now, consider that somebody becomes angry, yells at someone else. Now, in content, we could say that it is primarily because of ignorance, most of the times. But in special cases, it may be also out of transcendence, because of one's devotion to Krishna. Then, if that is the case, in content, we can leave it suspended. If it's a devotee doing it, it could be because of transcendence also. You can look at the intent. Okay, the intent was actually to help the other person. Intent was not just to get back at them. But then consequence. Sometimes, something may have the same strong speech to someone may have a positive consequence. The strong speech to someone else may have a negative consequence. So we can't universalize. In your case, when somebody spoke strongly to you, later on you realize it was right. So I would say that is also to your credit. And not just your credit in a self-congratulatory sense, but also in a healthy sense. Basically, if consider a vaccine. If somebody has normal or good immunity, when they are given a vaccine, that causes their body to generate further white WBCs, white cells, and that increases their immunity. So the vaccine makes them stronger to resist the disease. But if their immunity is already very low, and then they're given a vaccine, and that vaccine may actually give them the disease. Similarly, we could say the immunity of the person is like the basic self-worth or self-respect or self-confidence that a person has. If a person has a basic level of self-respect, basic level of self-confidence, self-esteem, then even if somebody criticizes, they don't see that so much as a personal attack. Okay, this person spoke this to me, yeah, I felt bad, but what they said was right. But if somebody is extremely low self-esteem, they're already very depressed, and out of that criticism comes at that time, then they just think, I just can't do it only. And they may quit completely. Or, the perverse expression of a low self-esteem is a high high bravo and bluff and bravado, where people appear to be very aggressive and confident just to cover up their internal insecurity. So then that person, because they feel threatened by that criticism, they will just lash out at someone else. So the point which I'm making is, when we look at the consequences of something, it is not just the person who is doing it, but the person on whom it is being done also matters. So if, say, speaking strongly, it is like doing surgery. Sadhus are meant to cut. They're meant to cut our misconceptions. But in surgery is never the first line of treatment. Surgery has to be done with the consent of the patient. Surgery has to be done after anesthesia is given. And after surgery also pain medicine has to be given. So there is a whole context in which surgery is done. So similarly, if there is a healthy relationship that has been developed between two people beforehand, and if that person, subordinate, has accepted that this person is an authoritative person, with respect to Srila Prabhupada, even if it were not his disciples, still his very age made a big difference. Just because of his age, people were somewhat deferential to others. Now, if you or I speak in the same way as Prabhupada spoke, using strong words, that acceptance of authority may not be there at all. And so basically we have to look at the overall context. So do we have a healthy relationship in which even if a person gets wounded by some strong words, they have the support system by which they can recover and see the positive within it. Otherwise, sometimes, even if somebody is doing something wrong, letting them learn by bearing the consequences of that wrong will reform them better than trying to chastise them. Because speaking strongly to them may alienate them from Krishna. And they may just give up the practice of bhakti. So, yes, we do, as devotees who are trying to share Krishna's message, there are times when we need to speak strongly. But we cannot take that as a license that every strong speech that anybody is making, any devotee is making, is necessarily devotional service. We have to see the overall context, see the level of the person, and then based on the consequence. Hey, last time I spoke this to this person, because I'm so insecure. But this person I spoke to, this person is so grateful actually. So this person is at a situation where they can receive feedback. This person is not. That way we can learn from the situation. Okay? So, thank you very much. And last question. Stop. Yes.
Thank you. And one more thing is that in Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a nice verse. Nunam pramatta kurute vikarma.
Yeah.
Yadindra priti aprunati. So in that verse, that means how, the living entities are forced to, becoming mad after, for sense gratification. So how will you explain that? Can you add something to clarify in the life of devotee? So how the modes are acting? You say mode of passion or?
This is a big
or
subject.
Can
Can we address it tomorrow? Because how modes act in the devotee's life, something I was going to talk in the classes on the mode of passion and goodness. I'll talk it tomorrow. Is it okay?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I've been trying to think how to formulate a question, so let me try. In some sense, you were describing that parameters have to be there in dealing with, the unwell person. So it came to mind that often in a community setting, ignorance can also manifest itself through being sentimental, in which case one may obscure or turn a blind eye to the unwell entity because of some sense of sentimentality. So that kind of sentimentality, it can create a huge problem because it's actually perpetuating ignorance.
Correct. Yeah.
So if you would be kind enough to consider or give some thoughts on what might be effective ways to break through sentimentality, because it actually can create huge problems.
Yeah. So sometimes when we are sentimental, we just say that, oh, don't criticize anyone, don't see any faults, everything that everyone is doing is devotional service. And in being sentimental, those people may be ignorant, and they may also perpetuate somebody else who is doing something in ignorance. And that way, things can go off track. Yes. It's true that we have some objective standards that need to be followed, and there are certain things which are wrong. We cannot just say because there's a devotee we should not criticize devotees. If some devotee starts, if devotee is eating meat or gambling or drinking or breaking a regulatory principle. We cannot say this is devotee, I should not speak anything about it. Yeah, we don't have to necessarily publicize it to the world that this devotee has done this, but that is a serious breach of devotional standards, and we cannot be sentimental about it. Sometimes in the name of being non-critical, we may become very gullible, and that can be dangerous. So therefore, there is the mode of goodness which helps us analyze things properly. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that dharma and adharma, in the 18th chapter, verses 30 to 32, he talks about intelligence in the three modes. And he talks about, in the mode of ignorance, adharmam dharmamitiya manyate tamasavrataha sarvarthan viparitamsha buddhi sapartha tamasi. That intelligence in the mode of ignorance means that one thinks the right to be wrong and the wrong to be right. This one perceives everything opposite. So considering something which is obviously wrong to be right, that is sentimental, and we could say that is ignorant. So in the name of sentimentality, if we are doing that, then sentimentality is also ignorant. So broadly, if we study scripture regularly and associate with devotees who are living according to scripture, then our Shastra Chakshu gets developed. Our capacity to see through the eyes of scripture gets developed properly. And if we are also associating with cultured devotees, then how to communicate wrong things so that they can be corrected effectively, that also we learn. Because if something is wrong, it needs to be pointed out. But then there is a proper forum to do that. Generally, we should talk with that devotee, or we talk with some senior devotee who is connected with that devotee and explain to them. Sometimes if nothing is happening, then we may have to take up that cause if it is a serious issue. But basically, to do it in a cultured way, that is the mode of goodness. And sometimes if nothing is working, no, we point out this is wrong and nobody pays any attention to it, then we have to decide what is my service to Krishna and how important is this particular thing for my service to Krishna. So if it is extremely important, then I may have to take up that as a cause to correct it. Otherwise, it is that maybe I don't have the power, I don't have the zeal right now, I don't have the influence. So then I pray to Krishna and I continue with my service. Because sometimes if we take up a battle which we are not equipped to fight, there are so many things wrong in the world, and because Krishna's movement is also part of the world, there are many things may be wrong here also. But if we don't we can't fight all these battles. So we may have to choose which battle I want to fight. And if that is a battle which we want to fight, then we can take it up as a cause to deal with. Does that answer your question? Thank you very much. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Gaur Premanande.